the etheric. This world, sometimes used interchangeably with the astral world, is the universe that provides the foundation for the material plane. The etheric world is also where the life force, the energy created and used by life forms, resides. Finally, there's the fifth level of reality, the material universe. The operations of magic are rarely aimed at the lower level of reality, but instead, the magician will attempt to alter the higher levels of the universe, knowing that those changes will eventually trickle down to the etheric and material world. It is in this way does the magician alter reality by intention. The mental world, being nothing but concepts and thoughts, are affected by the magician in such a way as to produce predictable results on the lower levels of reality. One could argue that my distinction of mental, astral, etheric worlds is unnecessary or just plain wrong. Some occultists only make reference to three worlds: the divine, the astral, and the material. I'm satisfied as long as you understand the concept of cascading and slowly solidifying energy. But in truth, there's nothing slow about it. The objects in the separate worlds are copies of each other, tethered together by a rope. They respond instantly to changes in the others. As above, so below. Every individual has a copy of themselves on each of the 5 planes. These 5 copies of the self are not united, however, but instead divided into 3 pieces by 2 large gaps. The first gap is often referred to as the veil, and this veil not only divides the astral plane into 2 parts, it also divides the material body, called the lower self, from that person's guardian angel. Between the astral and the mental planes lies the second deep gap. This gulf is often called the abyss. The abyss is what separates a person from their higher self, often called their higher genius. The higher self is nothing more than copies of an individual which reside in the planes above and represent each person's connection to God. Further, the way the total universe is divided is also up for grabs. Some in the occult speak of 7 heavens, 7 hells, the astral and material planes. Others speak of only 4 partitions of the universe: the abyss, the heavens, the astral, and the earth. Others still speak of 4 partitions: the infernal, heaven, the astral, and the material. The cross-sections that occultists have divided the universe differs, but there is general agreement regarding the function and nature of the separate worlds. The concepts of heaven and hell are usually thought of as exclusively Christian, but this is far from the truth. Every religion and mythology out there makes reference to the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. In regards to the heavens, it is often described as an extra dimension that does indeed have some semblance of space and time. Satan and the angels, for instance, are spoke of as approaching the throne of God, as if there was a way to be in heaven, but not in the presence of the throne. This is important because it describes a lack of unity where, like in our material world, objects can be closer or farther from other objects. Obviously, there is some form of space and time in heaven, and proof of this lies in the fact that many of the stories about heaven related to us from the Bible, occult, and numerous mythologies include sequences of events and entities and objects both near and far. Heaven is also spoke of as having gates that deny its entry. Implied in this is that heaven and our world are connected by a guarded nexus point. What's more is that heaven itself is often spoke of as being broken into 7 pieces, the 7 heavens. Each level of the heavens is ruled by an archangel, and in some cases, these heavens have been mistaken for earthly locations. For example, I've heard occultists, texts of the Christian Apocrypha, and Muslims speak of the Garden of Eden as a location that resides in the 3rd heaven as opposed to a terrestrial location. Then there is hell, sometimes called the abyss, the cliff-off, the averse or causal realms. Similar to how the heavens are broken into 7 pieces, hell is also considered to exist as separate worlds and, like the heavens, each partition has its own ruler. But unlike the material and heavenly realms, the 7 hells do not obey the strict laws of space and time that we are familiar with. These infernal realms are spoke of as places where chaos reigns. In the infernal places, the spatial dimensions are not perfectly straight and do not exist as perfect 90-degree angles. Here, the X, Y, Z, and time dimensions are curved and warped. If someone were to directly gaze upon the beings that exist in the infernal realms, they may be struck with an ache in the mind, because their very shape is unnatural to our senses. Sometimes, one will find the underworld divided into two realms. The first is Hades, which is the land of the dead, and then there's Hell, or Gehinnom. Hades, also called Sheol, is considered the land of the dead, where all people, both righteous and unrighteous, go when they die, whereas Hell is a place specifically for unrighteous entities to experience torment and imprisonment. And unlike popular conception, neither is said to be currently burning and aflame. In the Bible, for instance, it is stated that only after all beings are judged, Judgment Day, both Hell and Hades will then be cast into the lake of fire, and all those quote-unquote unsaved will undergo a second death and remain forever tormented in the lake of fire. Currently, however, members of the occult, and the Bible as well, speak of both places as being timeless, limitless, cold, dark, and chaotic. Occultists often tend to get a kick out of the way the average person interprets their dreams, and rightfully so. To the average person, taken up by the faulty commentary of men like Freud and Jung, a dream is a completely subjective world existing only in the mind of the dreamer, and not even existing there. Psychologists suggest that dreams are no more than the subconscious working on a problem, or the subconscious acting out the daily worries and thoughts of the dreamer. They claim that dreams are a fleeting, non-existent universe created solely by the dreamer, and that all the events and characters contained in the dream are simply projections created by the sleeping individual. The reality of dreams, however, is a bit scarier. To start, it is a false assumption that the events and characters that occupy one's dreamscape are entirely their own creation. Far from being mere projections of the sleeper's psyche, some dream characters are in fact spirits who have clothed themselves in some form and have entered into your dream. As it turns out, the land of dreams, often synonymous with the astral plane, is in fact a far more objective reality than it is given credit for. In truth, you have met with spirits and perhaps other dreamers in the astral landscape. These spirits, being without a form of their own, are given shape by the dreamer. These beings then quote-unquote hijack the dream and force all of the dream's events to be centered around the spirit. In the waking hours, the dreamer is no less affected by these spirits, but simply remains unaware of their influence. In the dreaming hours, the subconscious mind makes these entities visible. Most occultists believe that in the dream state, the astral body has detached from the physical body, allowing the astral form to roam while the material body remains in bed. Most people in the dream state do not realize that they're dreaming, but instead accept the reality of their environment. Helplessness is a common feeling amongst dreamers because they feel as though they're acting out a role in someone else's movie. Lucid dreaming is the opposite of this. In a lucid dream, the dreamer is aware of the fact that they are dreaming. Instantly, the sleeper is transformed into a god and can resist the efforts of these outside entities. Once the dreamer becomes aware, these entities are easily routed and can even come to fear the dreamer. These spirits may attempt to terminate the dream prematurely so that the dreamer does not acquire complete awareness. The dream world, or astral plane, is said to respect the rules of space and time to a degree. This is evident by the fact that some dreams seem to last 30 minutes, while in reality, the sleeper was in a dreaming cycle for 5 minutes. Distances between 2 points are also nonlinear in the dream. Concepts of space and time remain,